Coming up on Theater Talk.
But I will say, all the little boys manage to sound English, which is not a small...
There's the quote. They sound English.
Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation. From New York City, this is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins.
And I'm Michael Riedel of the New York Post. Susan, we've come to the end of yet another Broadway season, so it is time to assess what's been good and bad and somewhat indifferent with our good friends, the vicious, mean, nasty drama critics. We are joined by our good friends Peter Marks of the Washington Post, Ben Brantley of the New York Times, Terry Teachout of the Wall Street Journal, and the dean of the drama critics, John Simon from the Westchester Guardian, whose blog is...
Uncensored John Simon.
That's the only way I want my John Simon.
But that is not about theater. That's about everything else.
Everything.
But just as much worth reading.
Let's start with the good things, the things that I liked. We'll destroy the other stuff in a minute, though. One of my favorite plays, contemporary plays, is David Hare's Skylight, which I think has been given a very, very fine revival. Ben, your thoughts on this play?
I thought a beautiful revival, pretty much as perfect as a revival can be. I mean, some people might say, he's 40 years older than she is, but yet the chemistry between Bill Nighy and Carey Mulligan, I thought was palpable.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I remember after my friend Peter Marks, may he rest in peace, saw it in London, he emailed me, isn't she that girl? And she is. She inhabits the character so completely and without any conspicuous effort. It's one of the few Hare plays in which microcosm and macrocosm are one.
Right, where you don't feel it's just two arguments going up against each other.
It's a great coming-of-age story for her. She's someone who graduated from one chapter of the life to another and is making amends. She was very young when she was plucked, as it were, out of the provinces by Bill Nighy's restaurateur.
And Bill Nighy is an entrepreneur, and he represents capitalism.
She was molested.
I don't want to this feminist. Peter, I really admired Carey Mulligan, and it's almost one of those performances where you don't see the acting, you don't see the wheels turning at all.
No, inhabited completely. I thought it made the case as Hare's best play.
I agree. Yeah.
I don't think
Which
it's
I
any
never
question that it's his best play. I thought she was wonderful. I don't think the production works.
Why? What's your quibble with that? Stephen Daldry directed.
Designed too busy. Nighy, I think, miscast. He doesn't... I don't see the chemistry that you saw. I really don't. But beyond that, this busy, twitchy performance, it doesn't really seem to me to have the weight and center for the kind of businessman that he's supposed to be playing.
Oh, but he's a perpetual energy force. So he's the ultimate. He's the businessman as the attention deficit.
And I thought she did a great job. There's a moment in the play where she imitates.
I love
that was funny. Yeah.
Which sort of like makes it work.
So does the boy.
He is a good actor.
Well directed to imitate.
He is a good actor, but he was walking around too much. He was like someone who was prescribed by his doctor to do exercise. And he didn't want to do exercise. He wanted to do walking around the apartment.
Now, see, I thought he was someone who wasn't prescribed Ritalin. But I've actually known people who have been great successes in business who do have that restless energy.
And interestingly, I thought Gambon was not...
Who did it originally, Michael Gambon.
Who did original with Leah Williams. I didn't think there was anything sexual about the performance.
Well, Gambon is an ugly man, whereas Nighy is
Oh,
not.
now speak for yourself.
You had a crush on Michael Gambon? No, I can't believe that,
Michael
Susan.
Gambon was clearly a very attractive man.
But on the subject of David Hare, you all seem to think this is his best play. Is that because, John, it's more of a human play than what he normally does, where he does issue kinds of plays?
Well, yes, there was less politics, almost no politics in it. Which is not to say that political drama is a bad thing.
Yeah.
But the way David Hare does it, it's a bit dragged in by what the cat dragged in.
Although I do think it's a deeply political
It's a
play.
very political play,
It's just
but
not
the
overtly
politics
political.
is dramatized.
He represents the entrepreneur, the capitalist, the pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and she has gone to be a social worker.
She's a social conscience. Yeah.
Neither one of them is a caricature.
No.
And the devil gets his due in this play. Something that Hare is not always careful about.
It may also be benefiting from not being right on the heels of Thatcher. We can look at the play now as these people rather than as commentary on that period.
No, it floats free from the events that presumably inspired it.
Now, since Michael brought up feminism in such an unseemly manner, I want to bring up what I consider to be a wonderful musical, Fun Home.
and get your opinion on that. One that's very richly about not feminism, but so much as difference and.
Well, I think John and I are just going to say, I think it's terrible, I think it's wonderful.
Yes.
Because
I shall take the middle ground.
And Peter, you just sit back and
I will enjoy.
For me, it's the best musical of the season. I know John has said he doesn't think it's fit to live.
It doesn't live anyway.
I found it deeply moving. I mean, it lived for me in memory. I thought it was one of the best memory, perhaps the great memory musical. I mean, in the sense, sort of like The Glass Menagerie is the great memory play. And I thought Jeanine Tesori, who was not a composer I've been incredibly enthusiastic about in the past, really sort of captured the patterns of thought. But also, even though it's a coming out story, as a lesbian is the central character, it's also, I think, about the relationship everyone has with their parents, who remain the great mysterious figures in our life, as well as we think we know them. And there's always that revisiting the past, trying to figure out, what did they do wrong? What did I do wrong? Who am I?
Do you think it has more power now in that it's about this closeted man who, not a spoiler alert, kills himself because he's so embarrassed or unhappy? And during this time of gay equality that's coming in, that this is a more potent topic.
See, I don't think so. I think it's secrets that you glom onto in this show. You feel the sense that every family has secrets. That's what I related to, not necessarily the story of someone coming out or of everybody's father.
I mean, when I left the theater, I did say to the woman I was with, who was very moved, I said, well, it's the story of my family. And she said, no, it's the story of my family. And we didn't mean that literally.
Not the story of your...
Isn't the problem really that Lisa Kron doesn't know how to write and Janet Tesori doesn't know how to compose? So we have two big no talents doing their worst.
Well, I don't know if we all agree with you on that.
You were not moved by the story of this family with its secrets.
Certainly not. I was prepared to, because I read all these rave reviews by my colleagues. So my tongue was hanging out to see this wonderful thing. And then there was this perfectly boring, mediocre, dishonest little thing with terrible music. Because Tesori can be bad in two ways. She can be bad in a musical way, or she can be bad in an operatic way. Here she's operatic bad, but that's no better.
Is that the musical you saw, Terry?
No, but I am the middle ground here. I think the musical works on its own terms, but it softens the source material so much, the graphic novel by Alison Bechdel, that I can't shake my memory of the book. Tesori's score is one of the principal reasons for the softening. It's just too pastel for this material. Fun Home, the book, is a very tough, detached, cool examination of a very complicated pair of lives. That doesn't come to the stage. Now, you couldn't have taken the book and turned it directly into a musical. It wouldn't have worked. It wouldn't have been popular enough. They have popularized the book. They've made a popular musical. Bless them. More power to them.
I'm not sure it's a popular musical. We'll see how well it does.
I think it's going to struggle.
But I mean, let's face it. A graphic novel is just a euphemism for a comic strip. And a comic strip is not a suitable source for an intelligent person.
No, John. No, John. You are completely wrong on this. Fun Home, the book, is a very serious piece of work.
Well, then why is it a graphic novel? Why can't it be a novel?
Because that is the medium that she's chosen to work in.
I did go back to the book just before. I didn't feel it was pastel, what I was seeing on stage, or overly warm.
Well, pastel, I meant the music.
No, but I thought there were dark shades in the music. I thought there were a lot of shadows.
The only show on Broadway, essentially, the only musical that's really telling a personal, an account of something personal and meaningful to them. So much of it is not about anything meaningful to anybody, aside from the people trying to create a spectacle.
For my money, only Michael Cerveris is wonderful.
Yes.
He is wonderful.
Without him, it would be nothing, as far as I'm concerned.
He is the best we have in musical theater, I think.
He's very good.
And that role really plays to this great strength of his, which is his willingness to get out on a stage and be dark, be strange, be inexplicable.
And be
Where do you see that?
unsympathetic.
But let us say something for Paul Huntley's wig. That is the best wig I've ever seen. it really establishes a kind of hermaphroditic presence, bisexual presence.
So you did find something you liked about Fun Home, John.
Yes,
But I thought,
all right.
just to say, Judy Kuhn was quite wonderful.
she's
and
great,
I'm
too.
so happy that all of the actresses playing Alison Bechdel were recognized, and Judy Kuhn
Yeah, I thought they were
also.
terrific.
All right, well, speaking though of something that was not recognized at all, shut out completely.
Gee, what could that be?
By the a show that was shut out by the Tony nominators completely.
I wonder what you're going to say.
The Harvey Weinstein musical, as we like to call it, Finding Neverland. All right, Peter,
piece
you
of
want?
junk.
All right, Terry, start off. All right.
With no, other than a great set, with no redeeming values at all. Bland, uninteresting songs, bland, uninteresting performances, the purest kind of commodity musical. And to look back to Fun Home for just a moment, one that takes material where there really is a deeply built-in strangeness, the relationship between Barry and the children, and washes it away to nothing.
No, it was an act of bleaching, basically. I mean,
Yes.
total sanitizing.
Yes.
But I will say, all the little boys managed to sound English, which is not a small...
How were their wigs, John?
There's the quote. They sound English.
Peter, you're making faces at this thing, too.
That was one of the most miserable afternoons I have spent in the theater. And, maybe it was because my expectations were ridiculous. I thought there was actually going to be something happening. But by the point at which Kelsey Grammer comes back on his hook and sings basically Find Your Grail to Matthew Morrison, I didn't know where the hell I was. It felt very much like they were just making it as noisy and as bright and shiny as they possibly could, and to bamboozle as many people as they possibly could to make them think they were at a real musical.
I take Terry's point because there's a wonderful old BBC series called The Lost Boys that really delves deeply.
The book was wonderful, too.
Right, into this relationship between this strange, alienated man, J.M. Barry, these boys who give him another kind of an imagination, and this strange feeling he has for their mother, kind of a best friend but also lover sort of thing, gone.
He was definitely impotent with his first wife, and she left him. And I think he was a closet homosexual. And he liked these little boys, and the little boys did a lot for him. He was really one of them. He was not looking down at them. He was looking straight away at them.
There's actually a play which was a fairly good idea by, who's the guy who wrote Red?
John Logan.
In which Peter Pan, the boy who inspired Peter Pan, and the girl who inspired Alice meet as adults. She is quite an old adult. And you do inevitably think of that. I mean, there's so many ways to go with, as you say, the psychodrama behind it. But there was a slight glimmer of it, I thought, in Cambridge, because Jeremy Jordan was a more disturbed-seeming character. Yeah. Matthew Morrison is just, you keep saying, turn down the sex. You can imagine people saying, cut it out. No, you can kiss her, but that's it. There's no evidence of any real passion in this
But he did manage to sound Scottish, even when he sang.
That's true.
Wigs and accents, that's what John Simon's reviewing.
We are seizing on what's best.
But the question I have is, did people review Weinstein? Was there some of that? I have never seen as many reviews.
Not.
I have never seen as many reviews mention a producer as the reviews for the show did.
Well, mine didn't, and I don't have an opinion of Harvey Weinstein. I do, but not related to this.
And I'm not saying that to defend the show. I mean, I do think there was that.
Well, that's the question that I have for you, because those of us who are columnists and reporters, we really turned it into the Harvey Weinstein show. Does that bleach, if you will, into your assessment? Not you, but to you at all? Do you think no?
I just want. I mean, I purposely didn't mention him because I thought I never mentioned the producer. It's not. That's just not a.
I mean, in my case, I had to simply because we'd done so much. Like you guys, we did so much advanced reporting on it that it would have been. It would have been too obvious a snub.
I think it was a mistake for him though, because and he can't help himself probably. But every time anyone ever wrote about that show, they were writing about Harvey Weinstein, and I think not with the critics, but with the Tony nominators, it became a referendum on Harvey Weinstein and his tactics on Broadway.
May be true.
Also because Kelsey Grammer was the most interesting thing in it, and he was the producer, so that immediately deflected well.
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah.
And you know what? From his point of view, he was right.
Honestly.
They're minting money.
They're minting money.
Well, let's see. Let's see
if it holds.
Let's see how long. I want to talk about a couple of revivals, because I think it's an interesting Tony Award category between The King and I and On the 20th Century. You all seem to be pretty enthusiastic about both of them. Terry, you want to take us to The King and I first, what you admired about this production?
It was a very, very beautiful production. It made unusually fine use of a tricky space, the
Lincoln
Vivian
Center.
Beaumont. Very deep thrust from that first scene when the boat is in your lap suddenly. And then to be able to build on that rather than have that stop the show dead. Well, of course, you can build on that because you've got Kelly O'Hara.
Right.
But every aspect of this production, but in some ways I think the scenic aspect is most important because it cleaned out the clutter, which too often gets in the way of The King and I. It was mostly an open stage.
But it remained epic. And
yeah, it remained epic. You got to see the performances, and you had the best pit orchestra I have ever heard play a Broadway show in New York.
There was only one problem. The Japanese king sometimes was a bit opaque.
About 80% you got what he was singing.
Etc., etc., etc.
This was the issue. Could you understand Ken Watanabe?
You show me. You this.
Look, when he sang as a puzzlement, you didn't know
that was
he
unfortunate,
was chewing those
because
words to a point when. But that's a hard song for anybody to sing. It's a very quick song. That's those lyrics. No, I mean I mean Brenner, you could understand.
I bet he's better a month from now.
I bet he is
Oh no,
too.
I think he'll improve.
But what I think is it's not just the sets that are extraordinary, but this sure has a way of figuring out how people speak to each other on a stage in a very profound way. And so you get in this production Lady Tiang, who is always a part that
Miles,
fades into the woodwork. You suddenly understand where she's coming from and how important she is to the story.
We're aware of her, like in The March of the Children, of her gaze. I mean, of the anxiety of every mother. That's the other thing. Bartlett Sher can create crowds in which everyone is an individual.
Those children, each one a real person.
Whistle a Happy Tune, another song, grates on my nerves normally. But suddenly he did, and he did it. It was almost like working a camera among those people. Was that you realized that they were the Siamese were as afraid of her as she was of them. Of they were supposed to be. He made that thing work. He had that conversation going on the stage, which I think made it the best Rodgers and Hammerstein I've ever seen.
A quick word for the choreography, which based on the Robbins choreography, but adapts it for a thrust stage, heightens the effect somewhat. You don't want to mess with Robbins unless you really know what you're doing. They knew what they were doing. That was about the best staging of the Uncle Thomas ballet I've ever seen.
I want to ask you about the material, though, because when they first announced The King and I thought, I wonder if this will seem sort of the white man's condescending view of the Orient. Do you find that to be at all the case with this show, or is and why doesn't it bother us then?
Because I think there's such emotional. I mean, I think what Bartlett Sher always goes for is the emotional truth in these things, and you really got it in the relationship.
And at least now it has eight actors.
And also that number
in the first act, second act,
the beginning of the second act, where Western view of Oriental is always very sentimental, sung by the Siamese women. It does sort of say, okay, we kind of know what we're doing. It does offer an apologia for it. I don't think there was any condescension in the production. I mean, getting to know you gets on my nerves. It always will. But nonetheless, I mean, that's a song.
Let's also say Kelly O'Hara's performance.
Oh, yeah.
Was like this? No.
Really mitigates a lot of that. It meets it so head on, that performance. It's not, whenever even with Deborah Kerr, I mean, there was this sort of level of patronizing, condescending. I mean, that may have been the period.
I want to touch on the 20th Century, which is the other revival that I know you liked a lot, bringing Kristin Chenoweth back to Broadway, and a show that we don't see very often. Cy Coleman, Betty Comden.
Yeah, no, and I saw it the first time. I just arrived in New York with Madeline Kahn and John Cullum.
Well, but you caught it right up front.
I did indeed, and Judy Kay stepped in for Madeline Kahn afterwards. It's so effervescent. It does have some of that sort of wild showbiz satire of Singing in the Rain that Comden and Green also worked on. And Kristin Chenoweth, whom I hadn't particularly liked in Promises, was the last time she was on Broadway, is giving 10 performances in this, but appropriately, because she's the actress, she's the schlubby girl who came up from, wherever it was, the Upper West Side, and also the star within she does divide itself perfectly.
But I do think Madeline Kahn was better.
Oh, I didn't.
I may be prejudiced because because I had written that her bosom precedes her on the stage. So she had an operation which diminished her bosom.
Because of your review?
Because of my review. So that's one time in my life when I felt that criticism made sense.
You guys enjoyed On the 20th Century too, Peter, Terry?
Immensely.
Yeah.
Chenoweth's a real singer. She has operatic equipment. That show requires it. It's not a great show. It's a vehicle for great performances and a great staging. And she took it and ran, and I was thrilled. I also had she was all wrong for Promises, Promises.
Oh,
she's
terrible,
hard to cast. Give her this, and she's off and running.
One thing that's not on this list, though, that I thought was a terrific revival is On the Town.
That revival was perfect.
But no one's going to it.
Well,
You've
they
got
are
these
going
great
to
reviews, but no one's bothering.
They're going to it in a house where they can't possibly fill the house.
And it's been around a
And
long
there are no
time.
stars.
All right, I want to end with a show that just absolutely drove me crazy, and I think it drove you too crazy, Ben. Something Rotten. It's one of those experiences where I was in the theater and there were 1,500 people around me, deliriously happy, and the louder the laughs got, the more loathing I had for the show. Was that your experience?
That was the way I felt. And I should say that I got a call after someone else had seen it at a matinee who may be sitting at this table who went, "It's the worst yet."
Was that you?
I don't remember. But you know what I've heard? I read on Facebook last night someone complaining because, there's a number in the first act, a musical, where the place goes nuts. And this guy was complaining because somebody next to him was with the show, he said, and sort of getting people to stand up.
I heard about that. I heard
Which
about
I
that.
thought was, again...
Cheap.
The whole thing's cheap. It's like taking everything that worked in the Book of Mormon and the producers, all that pastiche, which was leavened with other things, and cramming it again and repeating it and repeating it.
Relentless.
Well, let's say this, whether the theater is getting better or worse is an open question. But that audiences are getting disgustingly worse. That is an obvious no-brainer. I mean, they'll stand up for anything, they'll cheer everything, they'll applaud everything, they'll yowl for everything.
I think they're applauding the fact that they've spent $150.
Well, that's
ticket.
it.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. I can't bear a musical, Terry, where everybody wears giant cod pieces.
I am the will with the skill to thrill you with my quill. I am the hard-working bard you regard.
And they keep making
omelet
jokes
costumes.
about them. I mean,
Or eggs.
I mean, it's infantile and it's juvenile, and you think, who is producing
Well, it
this?
is-
garbage?
Ben and
It's a-
I
it's a-
both used the word sophomoric.
Yes, sophomoric is
That's
right.
exactly what it is.
Well,
Without
musical
consultation.
musical comedy today means making fun of musicals.
Exactly.
essentially.
I'm sick of that too.
And we've devolved in the humor. It hasn't gone higher. It's gone lower and lower and lower. This is the lowest common
Because Book
denominator.
of Mormon, which does a lot of that as well, there's such affection in it as well,
Yes.
and such a real
And
appreciation.
what's particularly disgusting is the allusions to other shows or to Shakespeare,
Yeah.
and then the idiots
Applause.
in the audience. Oh, I know that.
I know, but the most obvious illusions, they say, we'll evoke Annie or a chorus line. And they're like, whoa, try evoking,
They don't even do
well,
that.
the Red Mill maybe. Something.
Yeah, no, and in truth, I mean, when I was in elementary school, we thought it was very clever to say omelet for Hamlet.
Yeah.
Have you read omelet? I mean, that is.
But this thing just says the word cats, and people laugh. Just cats.
They are cheering
Name
themselves.
is a
Yeah, that's right.
Let's not forget that Archibald MacLeish has written a poem in which Hamlet becomes omelet.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Oh, no
Yeah.
kidding.
What's the poem, John?
It's called the omelet of...
That's the Edmund Wilson parody, the omelet of A. MacLeish.
Well, but... Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Good for you, Terry.
If they put a reference to that in the show, then, and
Yes.
of course, the audience that you so despise, John, would have utter silence if that reference.
I would be a hypocrite, but I did sort of like Brad Oscar singing Evita.
I thought he was good.
Yes.
He gave a
Please.
Brad Oscar. He was the
He was
the
good,
soothsayer.
yeah.
He gave a
But
good
there were,
performance.
so there were moments where that was joyful to see those exuberant performances.
We have to
he
wrap.
was good.
We have
He
to wrap
was
it up,
good.
but I just want to ask you one performance this season that really stands out in your mind as an actor who you think was really terrific this year, John.
Well, I think Cerberus in Fun Home.
Terry,
He was the best for me also.
Cerberus, really?
Yeah.
Carey Mulligan in Skylight.
You give Carey Mulligan, okay.
And somebody who should have been nominated in the Tonys who was replaced by Bradley Cooper, in my estimation, was Jake Gyllenhaal in Constellation.
Absolutely. Very much.
And I thought
that play wasn't nominated.
And you want to reward a star who comes to Broadway,
that
was the performance to reward.
Constellation was a piece of garbage.
Well, that's your opinion.
Only fit for my colleagues to savor.
There you go.
And one that bears a suspicious resemblance to David Ives' Sure Thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, all in the timing.
All in the timing, too.
And let me just put in a word for Helen Mirren, because I thought we saw her do the Queen in the movie The Queen, but I was impressed with, in this production, the audience, how she captures the Queen in the various ages.
Sure, that was amazing. No, and she'll win. I mean, she's
effortlessly.
A shoe-in. I mean, it's time to give her one, and it's too bad it's for the same part. And they'll all start repeating their triumphs from screen on stage now.
Well, somebody said they wanted to see Meryl Streep play Thatcher with Mirren playing the Queen.
Right.
That's the next one.
Well, that could be. I would go to see that. Actually. All right, Peter Marks from.
That was me, by the way.
Oh, that was, it's always you, isn't it?
Oh, that's the show. It's always you.
No, it should have been you. All right, Peter Marks from the Washington Post, Ben Brantley from the New York Times, Terry Teachout from the Wall Street Journal, and John Simon from the Westchester Guardian.
That's right.
Thank you very much for being our slicers and dicers on Theater Talk. So long, Harvey Weinstein. Good job.
Our thanks to the Friends of Theater Talk for their significant contribution to this production. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Lowe Foundation, the Corey and Bob Donnelly Charitable Fund, the Noel Coward Foundation, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy Strelson Foundation, plus public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs and the New York State Council on the Arts, a state agency.
We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you and good night.